Welcome back, folks, to hashtag AskGSM here today for January 11th, 2017. Hope you guys are doing well. Graham GSM Matthews here, as always, answering your questions from Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube right in this video form. Bit of a shorter video today. We didn't get as many questions as usual, which I have no complaints about. Usually we get like literally 3 pages worth of questions, but today is about a page and a half, so it won't be as long. But as always, guys, before we get started, be sure to follow me on the Twitter machine. Send me any questions there at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. Find me on Facebook as well at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights or on the wall itself. Or last but not least, leave a comment on this very video. I'll be sure to include your question in next week's edition. So with all that being said, let's get right started here with Blue-Eyed Assorted, my brother Jason. His question was from YouTube. What is the better finisher, the GTS or the Styles Clash in your opinion? Good question, and it's hard to say. It's not like I'm biased towards one superstar over another, because as you guys probably know from listening to the show for so long, CM Punk and AJ Styles are among my 2 top favorite wrestlers of all time. So in terms of who has the better finisher, though, GTS or Styles Clash. The thing is, though, the finisher itself, both the Styles Clash is almost completely ineffective. It looks awesome, so I would go with the Styles Clash. But if we're going with what the more impactful move is, it would have to be the GTS. At least when a Tommy hits it. You didn't say CM Punk's GTS. You just said the GTS. When a Tommy hits it, specifically over in Japan, he's done it far and few between in WWE, NXT, whatever. It looks way more impactful. CM Punk's GTS, although it's a cool move, was not nearly as effective or did not look quite as good as when a Tommy, Kenta, whoever did it over in Japan and NXT. The Styles Clash, it's a cool looking move, so I'll go with the better finisher is definitely the GTS. My favorite finisher would probably be the Styles Clash, just because I think it looks cooler, but then again, it's like almost completely ineffective, because if you really think about it, he's just laying the person out on like their chest, and that's pretty much it. So unless he breaks their necks unintentionally, like he's done with the Yoshitatsu, and I think almost Roderick Strong a couple years ago, which isn't AJ's fault, and almost James Ellsworth a couple months back when he did not, or when he did tuck his head. If you tuck your head, that's when you're pretty much asking for it. But other than that, though, a better finisher, bottom line, got to go the GTS. Prince5835 has got a couple questions here. First one being, do fans know what heels are anymore? Why do they always beg for a certain superstar to turn heel, but end up cheering them anyway? What's the point? I think when people beg for certain superstars to turn heel, it's more of a change of character. Like for Dolph Ziggler, we've been seeing the same trash from him for literally years as this babyface, and he never changed up the character up until just recently, and he is way more comfortable in the heel role. Now, I know exactly what you mean. Dolph Ziggler is a great example, because as a babyface, no one could give 2 craps about him, but as a heel, you know, I know when he was smashing Kalisto and Cruz last night with a chair over their backs, he was getting, thunderous yes chants, and I almost laughed when I just literally got finished watching Talking Smack, and Shane McMahon and Renee Young were saying that, oh, you got boos and people booed you. Like, do you thrive on that? Like, what boos? I only heard the yes chants. I thought that was funny. But anyway, so yeah, no, I think it's great for Dolph Ziggler to finally go back heel. It's a role that he works best in, a role that he should stay with going forward. Just because he had been a babyface for 3-4 years, he's got to stick with that character going forward. So I'm glad he finally turned. And I think when people ask for people to go heel, it's either A, because they're more comfortable in that role, or B, because they're overdue for a changing character, they're extremely stagnant, etc., etc., etc. And Dolph Ziggler being a prime example. But I do think someone has to go heel first before they ultimately turn into the fan favorite that they are. A prime example being maybe a Roman Reigns. Like right now he's getting booed, but if he was to go heel at some point, I'm sure he would get cheered and whatever. But, I think AJ Styles might be a prime example. He wasn't really getting booed. He was popular, obviously, when he first came into WWE for the first 5 months or so. But I think he's even, interestingly enough, he's more over now than he ever was, as a heel currently, than he ever was as a babyface when he came into WWE for those first 5 months. He was very much over. But he is way more over now than he was 6-7 months ago. So when he does go back babyface, which is going to happen at some point, maybe even this year in 2017, he will be even more popular as the face than he was as a heel. So I think the heel turn, when people beg for it, it's just for a change of character. But honestly, like with Ziggler, he was way popular as a heel back in the day, and when he went babyface, he was super over because people liked him, but he got stagnant. So I think that's kind of why people do that. Second question. With former Attitude Era pay-per-views like Backlash and No Mercy returning, what pay-per-views would you like to see return? I did a whole video blog on this a couple months back, right before Backlash, and I love the idea. I don't love the idea of 2 pay-per-views being held a month, but I do love the idea of old pay-per-views being brought back, as opposed to new like gimmick pay-per-views like Elimination Chamber, which I could not care less about, honestly. But I loved Backlash, No Mercy, both pay-per-views put on by SmackDown were great. While we're at it, if we're going to be replacing pay-per-views or bringing old pay-per-views back, loved, I think, like I said, you can check out the old video blog. I think it's from like late August, early September for my list of 5 or 6 pay-per-views I wanted to see brought back. But anyway, with the pay-per-views that I would like to see brought back in the future, I think Armageddon was on there. Armageddon would have been way better than Roadblock. I don't know why we had 2 Roadblocks in one calendar year. Roadblock, End of the Line sucked. And it really made no sense. The title itself, as you guys said on the show, many months ago, about a month or so ago, if it's a roadblock on the road to WrestleMania, then why is it the end of the line? It's very contradictory to itself. The name in and of itself is very contradictory, so that was weird. But yeah, I would have replaced Roadblock with Armageddon. We have Judgment Day. What other good ones did we have back in the day? Judgment Day, Backlash. Vengeance was alright. They brought it back in 2011 for a cup of coffee. It sucked, so I don't know if I would bring that one back, but it was a good name back in the day. Great American Bash. I know RJ loved that one. That was a good pay-per-view. I would definitely love to see that brought back in like early July next year as a SmackDown pay-per-view. That would be great. I think that's about it. I'm sure there were other ones. Those are the only ones that come to mind. But Great American Bash, Judgment Day, Armageddon I always loved. Unforgiven was another good one. Unforgiven kind of held that Backlash spot, that Backlash now has in September, unless they get rid of Backlash and they go back to doing pay-per-views for both brands at the same time, which I would not be surprised if they do, in the near future, just because 2 pay-per-views a month is just absolutely ridiculous. But or they could just alternate, which is what I said originally, like what they did back in the day, give the month of September, whatever pay-per-view that is, like Unforgiven to Backlash or to SmackDown. And give the October pay-per-view like a No Mercy or a Cyber Sunday or a Taboo Tuesday, whatever, to Raw. That's what I would do, but nevertheless. Those are some pay-per-views I would love to see brought back. Backlash, Judgment Day, Unforgiven, Great American Bash, just to name a few, Armageddon. His next question, have you ever played the WWE board game? It's basically WWE's version of Seen It. That's a great question, probably my favorite of the bunch here today, just because that game is so great. Not only have I played it, I own it. Or specifically, John owns it. We used to play it all the time before we got into SmackDown and Raw 2007, which we still play on occasion to this day. It's been over 6 months, but whenever we do get together, and it's been a while, we do usually play SmackDown and versus Raw 2007. But when we don't do that, when we didn't do that back in the day, and I'm talking 5, 6, 7 years ago, we would play that board game. I don't know what it was called. It was like WWE The Game or something generic like that, but we still do have it, and I think it still does work. And basically, for those unfamiliar, as you said, Prince5835, you put the disc in. It's a lot like Disney's Seen It, but you put the disc in, and it asks you trivia questions. You go around the board, and you collect cards. You're a certain manager. You're either Bobby the Brain Heenan, Paul Bear, I forgot what the other two, with Jimmy Hart and Classy Freddie Blassie, I believe are the 4 managers. And you pick one and you go around the board. It's pretty damn fun. I mean, it gets pretty repetitive after a while just because although there are different games you can play with different questions, if you play it enough times, you pretty much know the answers to all the questions. And I mean, again, if you're a super WWE fan, you probably know all the answers anyway. But it is a fun game. I think it came out in like 04, 05. I think you pick a brand, if I remember correctly. I don't really remember exactly, but you have different superstar cards, and you can trade them. I haven't played it in years, and we have to play it at some point in the near future just because it is a really, really fun game. But yeah, great game. If that's the game you're talking about, the Disney Seen It version with WWE, it is pretty damn great. I don't know where the hell you could buy it now. I don't know if it's online, but me and John own it, specifically John, but I'm holding on to it, hopefully. So now that you reminded me of that, I'm hoping that we can play it the next time I see him on Tuesday when we watch SmackDown together. Next question comes from Brandon A., also from YouTube. His first question was, thoughts on the Omega versus Okada match from Wrestle Kingdom 11? Did you watch any other matches from the show? So you guys are going to burn me at the stake for this, but I have yet to watch Okada Omega from Wrestle Kingdom 11. And I know it's been a week now, and I am going to watch it. I actually had contact with someone yesterday from Access TV, which is where the New Japan show, like the weekly show, airs on. Not like I mean, it's new episodes, but it's like old content from like a year ago or so. I believe so. I'm not exactly sure. Anyway, but I had contact with him about a year ago to do the Jim Ross interview, and we've kept in touch ever since, and I get emails from him. And so I might, hopefully in the next couple days, be sent a screener for the next episode of the show. And the reason I mention that is because that show will be featuring Okada and Omega. And I will be reviewing it for Next Day Wrestling. And I think that whole episode, because the match itself was like freaking 50 minutes long. So I think it obviously would take up the entire episode. So I'm hopefully going to get a screener of that in the next couple days. Review the match, not the entire show. I might watch the entire show at some point. It's just super long. It's obviously their version of WrestleMania. I've only seen one Wrestle Kingdom, and that was Wrestle Kingdom 9, which I actually did review for Next Day Wrestling a couple years ago. About 2 years ago. And then I did not watch many matches from Wrestle Kingdom 10 with the exception of Styles and Nakamura, which I recently did rewatch, and one of the best bouts of 2016 in my opinion. Just an amazing match. And only days before the rumors broke, they were WWE bound too. But anyway, yeah, so the match was great. I know Omega Okada was like absolutely amazing. It got 6 stars, regarded as one of the greatest, if not the greatest wrestling match of all time. I haven't seen it, so I can't really say much. I find that very hard to believe, but I'm sure it was an amazing match. So I can't wait to watch it. Hopefully today. I have more time on my hands today than I did. Monday and Tuesdays are really, really busy. I worked Monday, Tuesday. I had other stuff doing for my freelance job, and I'm obviously doing other articles for Bleacher and What Culture and Hidden Remote, Sportsgate, all that other shit. So I'm really, really busy, especially during the week. But I'm hoping to, bottom line, I'm hoping to watch it at some point either today, tomorrow, and even possibly get a review up of the match on Next Era Wrestling. So anyway, so check that out when it goes up. Yeah, I hate to say that I haven't watched it yet because I know it has been a week, but I'm just super busy with a lot of different stuff, so I apologize. But I am looking forward to watching it at some point in the next couple days. His next question are Triple H versus Chris Jericho at WrestleMania 18 and Triple H versus Randy Orton at WrestleMania 25 considered bad only because of Rock and Hogan and Taker Michaels and the crowd being burnt out, or are those matches legitimately bad? Good question. I think Triple H and Jericho is different from Triple H Orton. Jericho and Triple H was not a bad match. It was a good match in my opinion, but yeah, I think Rock and Hogan definitely stole its thunder. It probably would have gotten a better reaction from the Toronto crowd, the Canadian crowd, had it gone on earlier in the card. And I know it's your Undisputed Championship, it's your most prestigious prize, but Rock and Hogan, nothing was going to top that. Not from an in-ring standpoint, just because the match from an in-ring standpoint, if you watch it on mute, is not the same had you watch it on full blast, obviously, on volume. But it is a magical match, regarded as one of the most magical matches of all time, at least in the past 15 years or so. So Triple H and Jericho was a good match, obviously kind of paled in comparison to Rock and Hogan from earlier in the evening. On the other hand, Triple H and Orton, in my opinion, from WrestleMania 25, sucked. That match was not good at all. Triple H and Orton, in my opinion, have never had great chemistry. They've had a couple of good matches. In my opinion, Cena and Orton have better in-ring chemistry than Triple H and Randy Orton. Triple H and Orton have feuded God knows how many times. As many times probably, if not more, than Cena and Orton. But their matches are never good. They had a match at Rumble 05, which I thought was boring as all hell. They had a match at WrestleMania 25, obviously. They had that whole feud in 09, which I could not have cared less about any of those matches. They had a match at the Bash that year, which was all right. They had a match at Judgment Day 08, Extreme Rules, One Night Stand 2008. They had matches at No Mercy 07, which was pretty good, the last man standing match, but even still, that wasn't all that exciting. But, yeah, just, they've never really had good matches. And I think even more disappointing than that, I mean, Taker and Michaels, needless to say, nothing was going to top that. But with H and Orton, the story, the feud had been built up so well, the match itself was really kind of a letdown, with the whole stipulation that H couldn't get himself DQ'd, and that was really kind of the story of the match, and they hit their finishers literally within the first 3 to 4 minutes of the match, and it was ridiculous. So yeah, that match just was not good. I mean, it probably would have gotten a better reaction had Taker and Michaels not taken place. One of the greatest matches of all time on that same show. But even had it not, the match was still not that good. I mean, it did not match the feud. It did not match that aggression, that intensity that we had seen throughout the feud over the months that preceded the pay-per-view. So the match would have sucked either way. So I think H and Jericho was good. Triple H and Orton was just not good. And he also said, same question in principle for Ambrose and Ziggler and Balor and Rollins at SummerSlam last year. Again, nothing was going to top AJ and Cena from earlier in the evening. Why that match went on third, The way that show was formatted was so bizarre because it peaked way too early. They had three pretty good to great matches in the first hour of the show, from Enzo and Cass versus Jericho, Charlotte and Sasha, who had a great match, and then AJ and Cena, and after AJ won clean, nothing was going to top that, and the show was just downhill from there. Again, two different matches. Ambrose and Ziggler, just very disappointing. Did not match the feud. The feud had been great. Ziggler cut all these passionate promos that people loved. People were really praising and getting behind. But the match itself was not a bad match. It was there. It felt like a mid-card match. It did not feel like a match over the WWE Championship. So that was one thing. Balor and Rollins was a much better match. But again, it was definitely tainted by the fact that the Universal title design sucked. And the crowd pooped all over it, which I still blame the Brooklyn crowd for, because they literally chanted for the damn thing the entire match. John was pissed off. I was annoyed. It was no fun. The match itself, if you watch it back, which I have not yet, but it is a pretty good match. From what I recall, it was a pretty good match. Not in my top 25 best matches of the year. It was a cool moment for Balor to win the belt, but the match itself was nothing all that special. I think they could have had better matches, and hopefully they will have better matches down the line when Balor gets back from injury. But, and again, same thing goes. I mean, AJ and Cena may not have been, none of these matches were the main event. Ambrose and Ziggler, Balor, Rollins, AJ, Cena. But AJ Cena was so damn good, nothing was going to top that on that show. Ambrose and Ziggler was all right, but felt like a mid-card match. Definitely not a WWE title match. And Balor and Rollins would have probably worked better had the match not been tainted by that damn Universal title design. That's really the only major thing I remember from that match. Other than the fact that Balor won clean, and he got hurt in that same match. Other than that, I do not remember much about the match, because the entire match was pretty much almost always about the damn chants from the crowd. His next question: would you rather see the Briscoes versus the Revival, or Elite versus the New Day? Good question. I think both matches would be good. I gotta go Briscoes Revival, because, as good as the Elite are, as great as they are, and I think the Elite, isn't that Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks? I'm pretty sure that's the Elite portion of the Bullet Club. They have so many damn factions, or sub-factions, whatever. Or maybe it's Adam Cole. I have no idea. I'm pretty sure it's Kenny Omega and the Young Bucks, though. Them versus New Day would be cool, just because they've teased it before on WWE TV. Like, I know Big E's come out with like a broom, which was kind of Kenny Omega's shtick for a while. I don't know if he still does that. The cleaner Kenny Omega. But I think from an in-ring standpoint, I gotta go with Briscoes Revival. That match would just be old school and kick-ass. Whereas New Day and Elite, I mean, it would be a fun match for like all the super kicks and all the shenanigans. But New Day have never had like a great match. Like, I know they had a couple good matches on Raw recently. That TLC match from 2015 with, or at TLC, the ladder match from TLC 2015 with Dragons, the Lucha Dragons, and the Usos was amazing. But other than that, they're really not capable of having like a great match. They're a fun act. They're not amazing wrestlers collectively. I know Kofi is, but Big E they're a very fun act again, but they're not known for like their instant classics in the ring. That's not what their shtick is. But Revival and Briscoes are. They've had a ton of great matches. Revival arguably had one of the best bouts, if not the best match of the year, with DIY last year, and the Briscoes had amazing matches all year too, and have had amazing matches for the past number of years now in Ring of Honor. So, gotta buy on Briscoes Revival, sell on Elite versus New Day. And his last question: why do you think WWE or fans hardly ever acknowledge Rikishi jumping off the cage on Val Venus as one of the most insane wrestling spots of all time? I have no idea. I have always wondered the same thing. I forgot what show that was from, but it was an absolutely amazing spot. So I'm sure if you type it out on YouTube, it'll come up, but I forgot what exact show it was from. It was pretty damn cool, though. I mean, Rikishi jumping off the top of a cage on Val Venus it's as crazy as it sounds, and it came off beautifully. It was a sweet moment. It was executed perfectly. And why it doesn't get talked about more, I have no idea. You don't see it in highlight reels. Maybe they showed it when Rikishi got inducted last year. I don't really remember. They must have, because that was one of the greatest spots of all time. But I don't know. I honestly don't know. It's not like Rikishi's in the doghouse or Val Venus, so I really don't know why they don't ever really acknowledge either, or the fans too. You said WWE or the fans. I have no idea. It's an amazing spot that really does not get the credit it deserves, in my opinion. Mark S. also from Facebook has got a couple Facebook questions here. His first one was: Who is your favorite cruiserweight wrestler at the moment? It's got to be Cedric Alexander. I like Jack Gallagher. Neville's great as a heel, but definitely biased towards Cedric. He was one of my favorites coming into the Cruiserweight Classic. He really impresses me. The whole Alicia Fox thing is whatever, but he's a great wrestler, putting all that shit aside, and hopefully he does fulfill his full potential. Not only as a cruiserweight, but I think he can be a big star for this company down the line on his own as well. His second question, how would you rate Samoa Joe Nakamura's steel cage match in Melbourne, Australia, amongst other steel cage matches you have seen? It was good, but it wasn't great. I know the initial match they showed between them was inside the cage, and it was shortened to kind of fit the episode, and then they showed it in full just last week on the show. I mean, even watching the full version, it was a good match. I thought their other matches were even better than that. I don't know if it was the best or I don't know if it was the weakest. I thought the Japan match from Osaka was the weakest, but this was still a good match. And amongst other steel cage matches I have seen, it's hard to say because there's a lot of steel cage matches, in my opinion, from over the years that were just tainted with interference and just saddled with interference, and no one could have given a crap. Like Cena and Wyatt still stands this day, in my opinion, as one of, if not the worst steel cage matches I have ever seen. Orton and Seth Rollins from Extreme Rules a couple years ago was also pretty just because of all the interference from the Authority and whatnot. I couldn't even tell you there were a couple other steel cage matches I remember that they've had, like in recent years, that I know were pretty good. Or at least one that was like, wow, probably the greatest steel cage match I've ever seen, but I don't remember what it was. I know it was from the last couple of years, but I don't remember what pay-per-view or what match it would have been. We see it so often, I couldn't even tell you, but it was good. Wasn't the worst, wasn't the best. It was just kind of there. We'll just put it that way for Nakamura and Joe inside the cage a couple weeks ago. His third question here, seeing you were talking about the possible return of Batista in 2017 on Wrestle Rant Radio, if Goldberg won the WWE Universal title, what would you think of a Goldberg versus Batista match down the line for the WWE Universal title? So for one thing, no, Goldberg should not win the belt. That to me just makes no sense because he's not. And with Brock Lesnar, with Rock and Lesnar, it was different. Before anyone brings up that argument that, well, why can't you put the belt on a part-timer? You did with Lesnar. You did it with The Rock. The Rock only held the belt for 2 months just to drop it to John Cena at WrestleMania, that passing of the torch moment, which was 10 years too late, but they still did it anyway. With Brock Lesnar, the guy just broke the streak. It made no sense to put that belt on anyone else but Brock Lesnar. He was the most legitimate, and still is, but at that point in time in 2014, the most dominant, talked about, and legitimate athlete in that entire company. Why would the world title not be on that guy? As good as Seth Rollins and Dean Ambrose and even John Cena were at that point, none of them could hold a candle to the momentum that Brock Lesnar had coming off that streak breaking at WrestleMania 30. With Goldberg, I mean, the guy's hot right now. He's very popular. He moves ratings. But it's like, from what I understand, he can always sign additional dates. That's what he did. That's what he did right before Survivor Series. But I don't see him sticking around to the point like Lesnar, where he's around for 4 or 5 years and stuff like that, and doing regular pay-per-views. And even Lesnar had better matches as champion. That Rumble match between Rollins and Cena and Lesnar from Rumble 2015 was one of the greatest triple threats, if not the greatest triple threat of all time. So, again, with Goldberg, I just don't see him having those caliber of matches. So putting the belt on him, in my opinion, would be a mistake and would kind of be a waste. So if he doesn't, I hope he doesn't win it anytime soon, if ever. But in terms of really what you're really asking here, Goldberg and Batista, I mean, we talked about it on that same clip. I mean, it's on the channel if you want to check it out, right here on the channel, or listen to the full episode, whatever, of Wrestle Rant Radio from last week. But to me, the real money match is Batista and Brock Lesnar. If only for the history they have in OVW, a lot like Lesnar and Orton, which was a disappointment because they had Lesnar squash him in 5 minutes. But I think Batista and Lesnar could have a much better match just because it's big man and big man. Batista's not a bad worker. Lesnar can be great if he wants to be. And that could be a real marquee match, in my opinion. I'm shocked they didn't do that the first time around with Batista. And I know they were kind of on their different paths at that time, but a Batista-Lesnar match, I think, would be real money for this company. One of the last real money matches they could do with Brock Lesnar. I mean, him and Seth Rollins again, how much money is that really going to draw? How much interest in another Rollins and Lesnar match really is there? Or Lesnar and Kevin Owens. As much as I want to see that, they really screwed the pooch on that one about a year ago. Kevin Owens has been booked. He's been booked so weak as champion that he is really no threat. I mean, I said it months ago that if they book Owens the right way, he could be a real threat to, Brock Lesnar at the Rumble, which is not the case, and he's not. And Lesnar would squash him in 2 minutes, so that's not going to happen. But I think a real money match could be Brock Lesnar and Batista. So Goldberg and Batista, not really. That just does not really interest me. Is it the worst idea ever? No. And I was going to say we've never seen it before, but we actually did. I mean, not in the current incarnation of Batista, but not the animal that he is today or was or whatever a couple years ago. But I'm pretty sure they did that match on Raw like back in 2003 or so. And you can check it on the network. Every episode of Raw is uploaded there. But like during the time that Goldberg was feuding with Evolution, I'm pretty sure they did the match on Raw at some point. Again, I'm sure it wasn't an instant classic or anything, but they've done the match before. And I think they've done Lesnar and Goldberg too, or Lesnar and Batista too in OVW or something, but never in WWE, never on Raw or a pay-per-view or whatever. That's really the money match to me. Goldberg and Batista, I don't really care. Apart from the 3 title matches at the next NXT TakeOver, what do you see as a possible undercard match? They usually have 5 on the main card, I think. So I do not know what the women's title match is, and I don't want to know. I assume we'll find out tonight or next week or whatever. I know it was not revealed, but it was spoiled last week in the same tapings where Ono came back, where Cassius Ohno, Chris Hero came back. Excuse me, but yeah, no, I think that for other matches on the show that they could do, I mean, they got to get okay. Let's assume that whatever return that Chris Hero had on NXT last week is being televised. And from what I understand, it's going to air on the Go Home show. We don't have many episodes left. We have this week, we have next week, and then the Go Home show. So we only have 3 episodes left. He's not returning tonight. So it's got to be that Go Home show if it was not a dark match segment we're assuming here. So if it's not a dark match segment and he is back on TV, and that's going to be airing on the last episode of the show before TakeOver, he's got to be on the show in some form or fashion, right? You can't have the guy return in NXT and not appear at TakeOver. So maybe we get a warm-up match, like his first official televised match back against like Andrade, Cien Almas, and I would love to see Almas and Roderick Strong in a match at the pay-per-view or at the special, whatever. We kind of saw a bit of a taste of that, a small preview of that in that Fatal 4-Way about a month ago on NXT. So yeah, Strong and Almas, Ono and Almas would be pretty great. I think they were kind of teasing Sanity and No Way Jose and Rich Swann. I might be mistaken on that. That feud might already be gone. I don't really know. But yeah, we already have the 3 title matches. I'm sure they will add another match, maybe the debut of somebody else. I'm not sure what else they might do, but those are just some ideas. Next question, his last question here. Do you think Sami Zayn needs a flamboyant animated manager added to him, but keeps up the great work in the ring, seeing as he has lost so many matches on the main roster to make a big title one of his feel good again, but that manager also calls the shots as they're in the ring too and believes in Sami Zayn? I don't think a manager exists presently who is a face who does that. Long question, really short answer, no. I don't think Sami Zayn needs a manager. I think he's perfectly fine on his own. You say he hasn't won many matches on the main roster, but that's the point, which is also a lie, too. I mean, recently, maybe not so, but he beat Kevin Owens, of all people. He won the feud at Battleground about a year ago. So to say Sami Zayn has not won a ton of matches, I mean, he has won a handful, not a lot, but to say that Sami Zayn has won no matches at all on the main roster is a lie, because he has. He won on pay-per-view against Kevin Owens in one of the best matches all year last July, so that's a lie. 2, I just don't think he needs a manager. And that's part of the appeal of Sami Zayn is that he loses a lot. I thought he benefited more from losing to Strowman a couple weeks ago on Raw in that last man standing match than he did from beating Strowman by surviving him at Roadblock. No one could have given 2 craps about that match. That match was whatever. No one cared when Sami Zayn survived or won, whatever. No one cared. But after he lost in that last man standing match, people cared. Strowman benefited. I thought Zayn benefited. So him losing actually adds to his credibility. It's a rare case, I know, but him losing actually, unlike Dolph Ziggler, people give a shit about Sami Zayn, so it works. So that being said, he does not need a manager. The whole Mick Foley throwing in the towel thing was just so dumb. I don't need to see more of that with Sami Zayn and someone else in that. And who else would you possibly pair him with? Like, really, they don't have many managers, and they should have more. I mean, there was a time when we were kind of getting back to that art of managers with Paul Heyman and Zeb Coulter and Lana as well, but they kind of went away from that for whatever reason. So anyway, I don't think, bottom line, Sami Zayn does not need a manager. He's perfectly fine on his own. And we'll finish off the Twitter questions here from Brad Berdar. If you were a WWE superstar, which current WWE superstar do you think your character would be the most similar to? Great question. Great question. I've said before, the person, maybe not the character, that I most relate to or idolize would be Chris Jericho for all that he does. But as a character, I don't know if I could say that. I don't know if I have a list and calling people stupid idiot and stuff like that, so that's hard to say. But man, that's a really good question. I saw that and I was kind of going through certain people in my head. I don't know. That's a good question. I guess I'll just go with Jericho for now. I guess if I did have a list, I would put people on it just because I don't like people. So I guess we'll go with Chris Jericho for right now. We'll go with Jericho, if not Brock Lesnar. Maybe not because I'm intimidating or anything like that, but just because, as Brock Lesnar has said on the Stone Cold podcast before, he does not like people, and neither do I. So we'll go with Brock Lesnar or Chris Jericho for that answer. His second question, how come the Brian Kendrick is not getting any recognition whatsoever for being as great as a heel as he has been? Just because I feel like a lot like TJ Perkins, he has been not tainted, but he has this aura about him of failure, this stench that we talk about, this teenage stench all the time. That the teen has that stench about them that reeks of failure, and hopefully they're getting away from that now that Dixie Carter's gone. Hallelujah. But with Perkins and Kendrick, they came in at a time when the Cruiserweight division in WWE, and it still isn't, in my opinion, as great as it could be, but they're getting better with 205 Live and doing different stories with Gallagher and Daivari and Dar and Alexander and now Neville and Swan, so it's getting better. 205 Live is pretty good, week to week. Maybe not must-see, but it's pretty good. Better than the Cruiserweight matches were a couple months ago, and all we were getting was 6-man tag team matches and all this other garbage. But for Kendrick, I think he is great, but again, I'm almost kind of happy that he's not champion along with Perkins, just because, like I said, in holding the championship, he held that belt at a time where people could not care less about that division. And there are those who still do not care about the cruiserweights in WWE. And Perkins and Kendrick, unfortunately, were just victims of bad timing. They debuted when people could not have cared less about the division, and WWE did a poor job of making them mean something. But I'm with you. I think Kendrick's great. I think he's a great heel. I like the idea of a feud between him and Tajiri, which was teased last week in 205 Live. I've yet to watch this week's episode, so I don't know if they furthered that or not. But I think Kendrick is great. Hopefully they can continue to use him in a meaningful role going forward, always giving him constant feuds and stuff like that, because the guy is really, really good, in my opinion. And his next question here, if he's fit by then, would you like to see Shelton Benjamin face Dolph Ziggler at WrestleMania? Would it be a good match? Yeah, probably, but what would it really mean? Like, really, as a WrestleMania match, does Shelton Benjamin versus Dolph Ziggler feel like a WrestleMania match? No. Honestly, it doesn't. That feels like an undercard match, a mid-card pay-per-view match, at best, on, like, Backlash or No Mercy, not WrestleMania. It would get buried in a second underneath everything else on that show. It would definitely be a kickoff match. So, would it be a good match? Sure. WrestleMania caliber? Probably not. But this idea was pitched about a week ago. We talked about it, David Joseph and I, on Wrestle Rant Radio. Instead of putting the two against each other, why not put them together? And I know Ziggler's a great heel. Benjamin will probably be cheered when he first comes back, but putting those two together, maybe you have them feud first and then team up, who knows, but kind of doing like a modern day world's greatest tag team with Shelton Benjamin and Dolph Ziggler against American Alpha for the SmackDown Tag Team titles. Now, that to me feels like a WrestleMania match. That to me feels like it's a match I would love to see at WrestleMania and could actually make the main card and would not be relegated to the pre-show, to the kickoff show. So yeah, that's the match that I want to see. American Alpha versus Ziggler and Swagger, or Ziggler and Benjamin. Maybe you throw Swagger in there too, because he's not really doing anything, and he's got chemistry with Ziggler. They're former tag team partners from about 4 or 5 years ago. You have that whole amateur wrestling background story going on there between all 5 guys, so hashtag book it. And then last 2 questions from at Mr. Marceau at RJ_Marceau. His question was, as of right now, who do you think will win the Rumble? So I get this question almost on a weekly basis, and my answer is constantly changing. Right now, I will say for this year specifically, more so than any other year in recent years, like for the past at least 3 or 4 years, we knew who was winning. 2013, we all knew John Cena was winning, and he did. 2014, we pretty much all knew Batista was winning, and he did. 2015, Roman Reigns, and he did. And people thought that Daniel Bryan would win, but other than that, there really were not any viable candidates to win the Rumble last year, because no one was going to go on to face Brock Lesnar. Like, a Dolph Ziggler was not going to win and go on to face Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania for the belt. But then Roman Reigns won in 2015, and then Triple H winning in 2016 was better than Roman, but it was still pretty predictable. So this year, it's not as predictable. I still do say that The Undertaker is winning the Rumble to go on to face John Cena for the belt at Mania. It just feels way too WrestleMania 29 for me, with like The Rock winning the belt at the Rumble and then Cena winning the Rumble. Both those things, while like Rock winning the belt was cool for the first time in over a decade or whatever, but it was so predictable that you knew that Rock was going to win the belt and Cena would win the Rumble, and then he would later win the title at WrestleMania. And I'm sure this feud would be better because it's not a retread like Rock and Cena was at that point. It's not a retread of something that we've seen before. So I can't really complain about it that much, but there are other ways of getting him to the WrestleMania match with Cena without having him win the Rumble. Now, I don't think that match needs to be for the belt. I think Taker could win or lose the Rumble, then go on. I mean, I think the title match would happen first, but I think you could do a thing where, you know, maybe Taker costs Cena the match, and then Cena comes in the Rumble, and they throw each other out. I don't know how that really works, but I'd much rather see Cena and Taker on its own. It doesn't need the championship. I think AJ's match should be for the title just because he has been the best thing going on SmackDown, WWE for the past year now. He should be in the WWE title match at WrestleMania, in my opinion. So, anyway, I think it will be Undertaker, though, despite that. Although, as much as I want that to happen, with Cena not winning the belt and Taker not winning the Rumble, that's where I think we're headed with this. So, I do think Taker will win the Rumble. As far as who I want to win, as I said last week, and I'm still sticking to this, credit to I Am Randy Cruz for coming up with this, at I Am Randy Cruz on the Twitter machine. The Miz, he was the first one who pitched it a couple weeks ago. I was like, yeah, I don't know, but now that he's not IC champion anymore, it would make sense. I want to see The Miz win the Rumble this year, but I do have a feeling it will be The Undertaker, which is still better than Goldberg or Brock Lesnar, because that match should not, for God's sakes, be for the Universal title. But who knows? We could see that match happen at WrestleMania for the belt. I mean, anything can happen in WWE, but that's worst case scenario. I think Taker, not best case scenario, but not worst case scenario at the same time. And his second question was, we'll finish off with this, is Kevin Owens booked worse than any champion in recent memory? That's a great question. Than any champion? There's so many titles now, it's really hard to say. But let's talk, we'll limit this question specifically to world title reigns, because for the Universal title, it just debuted, so we can't really say that. So for the WWE title, even Styles' reign really has not been as strong as it should be, just because he lost to Ellsworth so many goddamn times a couple months ago. But before him, it was Dean Ambrose, who wasn't really booked bad. He won a lot of matches, so he was fine. Before him, it was Roman, or Seth for a second, then Roman, who was booked fine. Obviously, fucking Roman Reigns. Triple H, fine. Roman Reigns, fine. Sheamus was booked pretty terribly. That guy sucked as world champion. I mean, Kevin Owens is at least entertaining. I mean, your question is who was booked worse. And Sheamus was booked pretty bad. I mean, even he got the upper hand over Roman Reigns, I think, more often than Kevin Owens has. Kevin Owens, it could be far worse in terms of him being booked worse. But he is up there, though. I don't know if he's the worst booked champion in, like, years, in recent memory, in, like, recent years, but at least in recent memory for the past year or so, he has definitely been the worst booked world champion in a while. I mean, I love Owens as champion. I love the combination of Jericho. They're great, but the fact they can barely beat Roman Reigns on a weekly basis, and the only time he can ever beat Roman is by DQ or count out, never anything remotely clean. And they beat him on Monday, but that was only after he took like 4 or 5 friggin' finishers, so it took forever. So they protected him. Huge in defeat was Roman Reigns. He put away the Samoan shovel for a moment and allowed Jericho to win the U.S. title. Thank God. But yeah, Owens' reign, I mean, I love Owens, but, RJ and I were talking about this through text a couple days ago. It really has not been as special as it could have been, just because he's been overshadowed by pretty much everyone else on the show. And there are at least 4 or 5 other people on that show, or even who are not on that show, in my opinion, who have been overshadowing Kevin Owens for months, including Triple H, Stephanie McMahon, Mick Foley, Roman Reigns, Seth Rollins. That is 5 people, right? Even Jericho has been overshadowing Kevin Owens over the course of his title reign over the past number of months. So, yeah, I would say he's not been booked great whatsoever as world champion. I do expect him to drop the belt at the Rumble to Reigns. Whoop-de-doo, but we'll see where that goes. But yeah, he has not been booked as strong as he should have been when he first won that belt, which was so great. People went nuts. I went nuts. Him winning the belt back in August, it was a great moment. But they screwed the pooch as soon as they had him start losing regular matches and had him, had Jericho interfere in every single pay-per-view match, and Owens lost all the time to Roman Reigns, and now he's being overshadowed by Stephanie and Triple H, who wasn't even there. It's ridiculous. But, yeah, hopefully it starts to pick up. I would love to see him retain and then be booked better going into WrestleMania season, but I know that's not too likely. But that does it, guys, for hashtag AskGSM here today for January 11th, 2017. As always, thank you for sending in your questions. We'll see what the final time was here. About a 40 minutes, not too much shorter, not too shorter than usual, but still on the shorter side compared to most weeks. But as always, guys, if you want to send in a question, you can do so by tweeting me on the Twitter machine at WrestleRant with the hashtag AskGSM. You can find me on Facebook as well at facebook.com/graham.gsm.matthews. Leave a comment on the post I usually put up on Tuesday nights or on the wall itself, or last but not least, you can leave your question on this very video in the comment section down below. I'll be sure to include it in next week's edition. So, with all that being said, guys, enjoy the rest of your week. A new episode coming up, obviously, next Wednesday. Then one more episode, then that final Wednesday before the Rumble as our go-home show. I'll be back on campus at that point, so I don't think anything should really change in terms of when the videos go up or the schedule or whatever, we'll see. But anyway, guys, as always, be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. All that support is greatly appreciated. Have an awesome week. I'm Graham GSM Matthews, and I'll catch you folks down the road.